In broadcast systems integration, there's this common idea that once a project gets approved, you're over the biggest hurdle. But as an integrator who's seen this play out many times, I can tell you that financial sign-off, well, that isn't the finish line. In fact, it's often the starting pistol for where the real challenges begin.
And we've all been there. You get that feeling of relief, right? The budget is locked in, the purchase order is signed, and the road ahead looks pretty clear. It's a huge milestone for sure, but it's also the exact moment where a project is most at risk, where the perfect plan on paper meets the very messy reality of the physical world.
And this is really the heart of it. That approval confirms you have the budget and that everyone wants the project to happen. But what it doesn't confirm is real-world feasibility. The biggest risks, the things that cause delays and force you to make tough compromises, they almost always pop up after that PO is signed, when you actually have to start building things.
So, let's talk about that disconnect. It's that moment when the elegant diagrams and the detailed spec sheets come face to face with the concrete and steel of a real facility. And this is exactly where a project can start to go sideways.
Now, this might seem almost comically simple, but I can't tell you how often this exact problem happens. The project gets approved with a 40-inch RF cabinet specified. Perfect. Except nobody on the planning team actually went and measured the door to the transmitter room. Turns out it's only 32 inches wide. And just like that, a tiny detail like a door frame can bring an entire multi-million-dollar deployment to a dead stop.
And it's not like you can just force it. Tilting a piece of complex RF gear, like a combiner, isn't like shoving a filing cabinet through a doorway. You're risking serious damage to incredibly sensitive internal parts, things like cavity balancing plungers. And the result? Your brand new system could be seriously compromised before you even turn it on. And it's not just about getting through the door. You have to think about the equipment's entire journey. We can't just see transport as a line item on a spreadsheet. It's a real engineering variable. You've got to consider everything, from crate dimensions coming out of a factory overseas, to getting through customs, to seasonal road access in places like the Canadian North, and even how it's handled in the warehouse. Every single one of these steps is a potential point of failure if it's not planned for from the start.
The other big risk we see is the late-stage change. It always starts out sounding so simple, right? Hey, can we just add one more frequency? Or, we really need an extra monitoring channel. But even a seemingly small request can set off this huge ripple effect, forcing a cascade of re-engineering work that affects tuning, rack layouts, power, cooling, and ultimately the long-term reliability of the whole system.
So how do you get ahead of all this? Well, experienced integrators know it's not about just planning better after the approval. It's about changing the entire process to put feasibility first, right from day one.
This really shows the shift in thinking perfectly. A typical project workflow validates the physical site after the design is approved, and that's exactly where all the risk gets baked in. The validation-driven approach completely flips that on its head. We go out and confirm site access, we measure the doors, we figure out the logistics before we even finalize the detailed design. You're essentially removing the biggest unknowns from the equation right at the beginning.
And this all builds into a really clear strategy. You're just mapping each of those risks to a proactive solution. So for physical constraints, that's pre-validating the site. For logistics, you integrate transport planning right into the system architecture. And for those late scope changes, you put a disciplined change management process in place to protect the integrity of the original design.
At the end of the day, a successful broadcast project isn't just one that gets a signature on a purchase order. It's one that can actually be built, commissioned, and supported reliably out in the real world. It's all about closing that gap between intent and execution. If there is one thing you take away from this explainer, I hope it's this. The purchase order confirms what you want to do, but the execution, the part that's grounded in physical validation and real-world logistics, that's what confirms what you can do.
Because really, that's the goal, isn't it? We're not just trying to deliver a box or a bunch of components, we're trying to deliver a complete, cohesive system that works perfectly from day one and keeps on performing for its entire operational life. And that is the difference between a project that's just approved and a project that's truly successful.